TheReluctantHusband.com. This week we are going to be talking about ShimDeok. ShimDeok was a female singer. She was born in 1897, and she had a very short, about only a 2-year singing career. Now, ShimDeok isn't, I wouldn't consider her a throat singer, but she was very important in Korean singing. She was actually more of a classical music soprano even. But her story is interesting, and I thought, sharing it would be a good idea. So, Yoon Shim-duk was the first of many things. She was the first Korean student to receive a government scholarship. She was the first Korean international student to be admitted to, I believe it's the Tokyo Music School. She debuted as the nation's first professional soprano, singing Western classical music. She was Korea's first acknowledged vocalist. She wrote the lyrics and sang Korea's first quote unquote uh, pop song. She was the first to have an album released overseas in the Japanese market. So Yoon Shin-duk was born again in Pyongyang in 1897, and although her family was very modest, she had siblings also, like 3 siblings. But all the children were able to receive a quote unquote modern education through religious charities that her family was active in. It seems that some of her siblings were also musically talented, but Yoon Shin-duk was uh, somewhat special in when it comes to music. So she graduates middle school, high school, and a teaching college in Seoul in I think 1914. She then became a public school teacher for 1 year. However, Yoon Shin-duk showed a lot of musical talent, and after working for a year, she went to study music abroad in Japan. Now, her family wasn't rich, and she only worked as a teacher for 1 year, so she was able to afford to study abroad because she received a government scholarship. She studied vocal music. Now, Yoon Shim-duk's character, she possessed obviously a very beautiful voice, but she was also considered quite beautiful. And one of the charms about her was she had a lot of feminine beauty, but her personality was very much of a tomboy. And this unique combination caused frequent misunderstandings and scandals during her short life. Now, in 1921, Yoon Shim-duk uh, joins a musical tour group in Korea to raise money for Koreans who were in forced into labor over in Japan. And it was on this tour that she met a gentleman by the name of Kim Woo-jin. Now, Kim Woo-jin, he was born in the Jeollanam-do area. His father was a large landowner, and he was an established writer with many different pen names. He was also married, and so Kim Moon-jin had studied literature in Japan, but when Yoon Shin-duk met Kim Moon-jin, they kind of hit it off. Now, there are reports that they weren't romantically involved when they first met, and following this kind of logic, you could imagine with Yoon Shin-duk's personality, which would have been quite unusual at the time, she would be getting the attention of a lot of men. And I don't think that a wealthy guy like Kim Woo-jin was used to having to fight for what he wanted. But as they toured together, it was Yoon Shim-duk who took a liking to Kim Woo-jin, and Kim Woo-jin was, like I said before, a married man with a child at this time, but still very much under the authority of his conservative father. So he could not reciprocate the emotions that he was receiving from Yoon Shim-duk. By the time that tour group ended and both were heading back to Japan, apparently they both had fallen deeply in love with each other. But they tried to forget their feelings for each other while they both went their separate ways in Japan. So in 1923, Yoon Shim-deok graduates from the music school, and once again, she was the first Korean to debut as a professional soprano, and she was a hit. Uh, her schedule was very busy, and her abilities were appreciated as a talented solo performer. However, that wasn't enough to make a living. Also, her beauty and charm and uh, soon brought about scandals that followed her, and there were even rumors reported of her having plans to marry a wealthy man and whatnot. Now, she was able to study in Japan from a government scholarship, and it was customary that students who benefited from the government would return home and work as a public school teacher. But Yoon Shim Duk was not able to find a teaching job that would provide steady income. And although she was very talented, singing Western classical music was not profitable for her. So around the same time as Yoon Shim Duk, Kim Woo-jin also returned home and while studying in Japan, he became a member of a dramatic arts association with other Korean students. At some time, while back in Korea, Kim Woo-jin establishes a performance company and they go on tour. And Yoon Shin-duk is struggling with her career, so Kim Woo-jin offers her an opportunity to join his performance, and she decided to become a pop singer and actress. And this too draws the eyes of critics. With little acting skills and a voice of classical music, her performances were not well received. So Yoon Shim Duk decides to go back to Japan as she has a contract with a recording company to record an album. At the end of the recording session, Yoon Shim Duk asks the technicians and management if they would record one last song for her, and this would become her final mark on Korean pop songs at the time. In the meantime, Kim Woo-jin was planning to study abroad in Japan. He's in Tokyo at this time, and when he receives a telegram from Yoon Shin-duk requesting for him to come urgently to Osaka and visit her, or something would happen to her, and so he rushes to Osaka. They spend their last few days together in Osaka, and then they decide to board a ship, a ferry, back to Busan. They both, they board the ferry and under aliases. And then on August 4th, during the voyage back to Korea, Yoon Shim Duk decide to jump off the boat and take their own lives. Now, their bodies were never found, despite, offers for a reward. And there were even rumors like, the people like spot them in Italy or something like that. The news of this tragedy took Korea by storm. You have a story about a single woman of great musical talent and a wealthy married man hopelessly in love, and both of them decide that rather than going on separately, they wouldn't go on at all. And so um, this tragedy happened, and then the release of her final album happened, and it added to the demand for this final album. Song that was recorded, the final song that was recorded by Yoon Shin Duk, is called Sai Chanmi, and although the melody was borrowed from another song, the lyrics were written by Yoon Shin Duk herself. Um, and this song signaled an opening of a new era in the recording industry for Korean artists.